What's going on, guys? Welcome in. I am Kadarius Washington, and this is the Sports Rundown. It is a pleasure to have you in, and be sure to follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports. Well, folks, the men's Final Four is finally here. But before I get into that, we'll give you a little women's basketball rundown for you as the women's national championship game is set. We've got UConn taking on South Carolina for the second time in the last 3 seasons in a national championship setting, and the second time this season. So I'm going to break down South Carolina for you right quick. In their game against Texas, kind of no surprise, South Carolina taking care of Texas 74-57. Tahina Powell with led the scorers in the game for South Carolina with 14 points, shooting 5 for 6 from the field and 3 for 4 from 3. Joyce Edwards, the freshman, went off in the game, having a double-double with 13 points and 11 rebounds, and Bree Hall, the only other Gamecock in double digits, with 11 points. Now, I talked about this on the women's basketball rundown on yesterday. South Carolina is that team in this field where there's no really bona fide star player. Any player can go off at any time for South Carolina, and we definitely got that more so in Joyce Edwards than we did the others. So Texas looked good to start the game in the first quarter, but that was pretty much it from there. Madison Booker once again held in check by Bree Hall. Booker only having 11 points, shooting 5 for 11 from the field, and 3 early costly fouls for her. This Texas team, like I said in my women's basketball rundown, they just had an issue all season of getting in foul trouble early. Maybe not all season, but they've had this issue of getting in foul trouble early in games, and then Booker having to sit down with 2 first quarter fouls and then another one in the second quarter. That proved costly for Texas, and Jordan Lee was the only other player. Jordan Lee, the freshman for Texas, had 16 points in the game, shooting 6 for 12, being Texas' most proficient player. And Dawn Staley, once again, owning Vic Schaefer in postseason settings. And South Carolina looking to become the first team to repeat since UConn did it when they had their little four-peat from 2013 to 2016. And speaking of UConn, they absolutely dismantled UCLA 85-81. That was not a competitive game by any stretch. And I know I took UCLA off of Fraud Watch when we were making our bracket, but I really should have kept them on because I really had a feeling that UCLA was going to get exposed in one of these games, and lo and behold, this was the game, which is unfortunate because I thought this thing was going to be more competitive. Sarah Strong, how about her? She has been absolutely phenomenal in the NCAA tournament and all season for UConn. Sarah Strong, the third UConn freshman with 20 points in a Final Four, joining Maya Moore and Breanna Stewart. Now listen, UConn is getting ready to lose an all-time great player in Paige Beckers after Sunday afternoon, but they got literally another one who's on that legendary pace in Sarah Strong. How does UConn keep doing this? My goodness, Paige Beckers is on her way out the door, and now they got Sarah Strong, who once again, her ceiling scares me, and she's only a freshman, which is absolutely crazy for the Huskies. And AZ Fudd with 19 first half points. She really didn't do anything in the second half, and she really didn't need to as the game was already out of hand. And AZ Fudd dang near outscored UCLA in the first half, alone. And then Lauren Betts was literally the only good player for UCLA, only having 26 points. And the only other leading scorer for UCLA was Kiki Rice with 8 points. I mean, that was just a brutal display from UCLA. I thought this game was going to be more competitive than this. I thought UCLA was a better team, and I was singing their praises heading into the NCAA tournament, and then they have a performance like this. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, I just have no words for this. But nevertheless, UConn, South Carolina in the national championship game. And some numbers here for you. Dawn Staley is 3-0 in national championship games. This is her 4th appearance in one. And she gave Gino Auriemma his only loss in a national championship setting in his now 13 appearances. And listen, like I said throughout the season, Dawn Staley has not lost twice to an opponent in the same season since 2019. But I think this UConn team is going to be just much better in this matchup. Now, South Carolina, like I said, all they've done ever since that UConn game early in the season, they've just won, and won some more. But I'm really favoring UConn in this matchup. Like I said, I picked them before the season because I believe Gino and UConn is due for a title. They haven't won a championship in 9 years, which is which is crazy if you think about it. So I think they're due for a championship. UConn, my pick before the season, and UConn is my pick to cut down the nets on Sunday afternoon. Now, let's get into the men's Final Four taking place later on today. So we had 14 teams in the SEC make the NCAA tournament, and only 2 of them remain, and the 2 are facing off against each other. Let's take a closer look real quick at Auburn making their first Final Four since 2019. The last time they were in it, of course, losing to the eventual champion Virginia on those Kyle Guy free throws. Auburn's journey to the Final Four went through Alabama State and then Creighton, followed by defeating Michigan and then Michigan State in the Elite Eight. And Florida, their opponent, their first Final Four appearance since 2014, losing to the eventual champion UConn. If you remember that year, both UConn men and women took home national titles in that one. Florida took down Norfolk State. Then reigning champion UConn. I'm mentioning UConn a lot during this thing. They took down Maryland in the Sweet 16 and then Texas Tech in the Elite Eight. This is their second meeting this season, and the last time they faced off against each other was February 8th, a couple of months ago, when this Florida team took down the then top-ranked Auburn Tigers 90-81 and ended their 14-game winning streak. And then Walter Clayton Jr. and Alex Condon of Florida had Clayton had 19 and then Condon had 17. And a little note and a little storyline about this one, as you may know, Todd Golden was on Bruce Pearl's coaching staff at Auburn for 2 seasons, I believe. I read something about them being teammates for some sort of international team or something like that. And then, of course, Golden serving under Pearl for 2 seasons before leaving for San Francisco, where he would eventually become the head coach. And this is their 5th meeting between the 2 coaches in their respective schools now. And the series right now is tied 2 apiece. Florida winning in February of 2024. And then, of course, this past February, and Auburn getting their wins in December of 2022. And then last year in the SEC championship. Now, I know I've been saying throughout the season that Bruce Pearl is due for a national title, but this Florida team is just really, really good. This is a team that's been a giant killer all season. They've been taking down one seeds like it's clockwork. And this is a Florida team who you can never, ever, ever count out. I mean, yeah, Texas Tech kind of had them, had their foot on their necks, but Florida, they just found a way to win. They just find a way to win games, and that's why I'm picking Florida to win this matchup against Auburn. All right, in the next matchup, we've got Duke in their first Final Four appearance. Well, since 2022, or their second in the last 3 seasons, rather. And the last time they were in the Final Four, who else but my Tar Heels, my North Carolina Tar Heels, getting the win against them and sending Coach K off into the sunset. Their journey to the Final Four went through Mount St. Mary's, the 16 seed, followed by Baylor, and then Arizona, and then Alabama. And Duke scoring 100 points against Arizona and then absolutely dismantling Alabama in the Elite Eight. They're going up against Houston, their first appearance since 2021, losing to the eventual champion Baylor. And their journey to the Final Four went through SIUE, the 16 seed, followed by Gonzaga, and then Purdue in the Sweet 16, and then Tennessee in the Elite Eight. And if you remember in that Purdue game, that was that inbound play with about a couple of seconds remaining in that one where our good little buddy there got the layup, and then they absolutely destroyed Tennessee, flat out embarrassed them. And this is the second time Duke and Houston ever faced off. Their last meeting was last year in the Sweet 16. It was last year in the Sweet 16, and Duke won that one 54-51. Cooper Flagg named the AP Player of the Year. Listen, people wax poetically about how incredible he's been, and yes, he has been a phenomenal player, but the only game that he really took over so far in this tournament was the Sweet 16 matchup against Arizona, where he scored 30, but really, couple of other players to pay attention to for Duke is Con Knuppel, who's projected to be a lottery pick, having back-to-back 20-point games, and then Tyrese Proctor is another player to watch. He had 6 threes, made 6 threes in the first round, and then 7 threes in the second round, and didn't really shoot the ball all that great against Arizona, but then responded against Alabama. Now, listen, I know Duke is the trendy pick, and I will say this. If Houston finds themselves in a track meet against Duke, Houston's going to lose because this Duke team is the last team that you want to find yourself in a track meet in. I mean, if that's the case, if it's an offensive shootout, I have a very hard time seeing Houston outscoring Duke, but they're definitely going to have to rely on their defense. It's what they've been known for, and I'm really liking this Houston defense, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and lean towards Houston there, setting up a Florida and Houston national championship game, and that would be their first meeting since 1995 and their 5th overall, and of course the Gators won their last meeting in 95, and that would be an incredible game, incredible gritty game, really. But I have Florida, who has been by far one of the best teams this season, and I believe the best team in the Final Four. So I have Florida cutting down the nets on Monday night as we had in our bracket. Speaking of our bracket, how did my bracket do? Well, not very good. All right, so in the South region, here's the games that I missed in the South region. I picked Louisville over Creighton. That turned out to be a very stupid pick. And then I had Yale taking down Texas A&M. That didn't happen. And I had my Tar Heels going to the Sweet 16. They went out in absolutely pathetic, embarrassing fashion over Ole Miss, and it was one of the biggest I told you so parties that really you're ever gonna see. And then in the East region, in the first round, I picked Liberty over Oregon. That didn't happen. Oregon pretty much took care of Liberty handily. And then in the Sweet 16 in the East region, I had Arizona taking on BYU in the Elite Eight, and we ended up getting Duke and Alabama. And then in the West region, in the first round, I had Kansas over Arkansas. That didn't happen, obviously. And then I had St. John's going to the Elite Eight. Once again, Arkansas. Thank you very much. And then in the Midwest region, in the first round, I had Clemson going to the Sweet 16. Ended up losing to McNeese, which was pretty much a foregone conclusion on most brackets. And then I picked High Point to go over Purdue. That didn't happen. And in the Sweet 16, I picked Kentucky to go over Tennessee. That didn't happen. And Arizona is the only Final Four pick to not make it in either field in the men or women's brackets that I've made on my sports programs. So, not bad, but not good. But better luck next year, I guess. But as far as upsets is concerned, we did get a good couple of upsets in the tournament. We did get the 12 seed Colorado State over Memphis. We did get Drake over Missouri, and I thought that was going to be a little more of a story with Drake because, of course, people were using the Seinfeld love the Drake scenario there, saying got to love the Drake. And then you had another 12 over a 5, McNeese and Clemson, as I just mentioned. And I guess it's a little bit of a bracket tip too, making my men's brackets to at least pick a 12 over a 5. We've been getting quite a few of those over the last couple of tournaments or so. So that's a kind of a thing to look for as we make our bracket next season, next tournament anyway. And then we got Arkansas taking down Kansas, as I just mentioned, the 10 over the 7. We had another 12 over a 5, Colorado State beating Memphis, and then we had a 10 over a 7 in New Mexico and Marquette. And then we had BYU, who I said was another giant killer, taking down the number 3 ranked Wisconsin as far as the round of 32 is concerned. And then we had another round of 32 upset, having Ole Miss over Iowa State. So not really a big chaotic upset in the men's tournament field, and it was probably for the best too, because it set up some really, really, really good games in the later rounds of the tournament. And that was an issue in past tournaments, getting these Cinderella teams, these 15, 14 seeds going up and getting these big wins in maybe the first or the second round, and then going into the Sweet 16 and getting absolutely hammered by a legitimate contender. But nevertheless, we finally made it. Final Four is here, and we're going to go ahead and enjoy this thing and see who cuts down the nets on Monday. Well, friends, that will do it for the sports rundown. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to once again follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports. Enjoy the games, everyone. I will see y'all the next time. Peace.